Welcome to the podcast about Lighting Matters. Our unflinching conversations uncover the nuances and complexities which shape the craft of lighting design.
We explore the pivotal whys behind a lighting designer's choices and find honest answers to your most challenging lighting questions because lighting matters. Welcome to the Lighting Matters podcast. This is episode number 2, and I know you're in for a really exciting conversation today. We're digging in. I'm Lisa Reed with Reed Burkett Lighting Design. I'd like to introduce my co-host, Avi.
Avraham Mor with Morlights, based in Chicago, and we're so excited to have Derek Barnwell with us from Available Light. Hi, Derek. Thank you for joining us.
Indeed. Thanks for having me.
And this episode is made possible by our good friends at LSI Lighting Services, Inc., not the other LSI.
That's how we all talk about it, isn't it?
Indeed.
LSI and the
Services,
other LSI.
Services.
I don't know about you guys. I think I do, but they are one of our favorite partners when it comes to track and lighting in museums. The fact that you can spend a whole podcast just talking about all of their different stuff and how great it is, and how great they are. I think that goes into, for me, one of the most important parts is you can have great product, but then be terrible people. But this is a company that is great product, amazing people, and, will help in anything. And they always like new stuff too. Zaccato came out. They're like, oh yeah, let's try that. Now, DMX and Dolly on track. Oh yeah, let's try all of those things. I've always really enjoyed that about them.
Derek, you do a lot of museum design, right? I'm sure you have some LSI stories.
Yeah, it's about 50% of our core business is museums, and LSI has been our A-spec for decades, literally decades, and they have been there for us. We designed a fixture for them, actually, that we wanted to call it the Venti, but they said no.
They let you do the fixture design, but not the naming.
They let us design it, but we couldn't name it. So it turned out to be the SSL 238 and 230 series. But Venti is always close to our hearts. And they've just been a great partner for us. And that's really how I view them relative to our work, is that they're a really good partner. And they have just been there for us in all good times and bad times. And the bad times are the best stories because the good times are just stories.
Right.
But they have definitely bailed me out of a jam or two. Self-made jam or two. No doubt.
No, that's what I'm looking for in a lighting manufacturer partner.
I know that I can get them on the phone. I can get somebody from LSI on the phone most times of the day. And that alone is worth the spec, because if I could pick up the phone and the president of the company gets on the phone, from that on down to whatever piece of personnel needs to deal with it is fantastic. And that peace of mind when we go onto a site that we are going to encounter a lot of unknowns. Having that peace of mind is the thing I don't have to sweat.
I think a lot of businesses say this, but lighting is such a relationship business, and that's what's really important about them to us. So
yeah, when I think about like LED tape, I think about like how special that used to be 25 years ago. That was a super unique product, and now it's a Home Depot product. It's a commodity product. So if we're speccing something like that, the only thing that sets a lot of those products apart is who's on the other end of the phone.
So that's a great segue. Derek, who are you and how did you get here?
So I've been with Available Light now for 18 plus years. And Stephen Rosen, our president, creative director, and I have had a relationship for 25 years, I guess. And I had a an option to join the company around 2001, and that didn't work out just for some political reasons in terms of who I was working for at the time, and Stephen wanted me to go to work for him. And so we finally pulled it together around 2005. And so I started out as a senior associate and have been hanging around ever since. And I've spent about 10 years, maybe 9.5 years in the Boston office, which is essentially our home office. We have 5 offices around the country now. And I moved back to Raleigh, North Carolina, which is where I was born and raised almost 10 years ago. I set up a remote office. So I did this remote thing nearly 10 years ago.
Before
As
it
a
was
matter
cool.
of, before it was a thing. And it was really awesome. It was a great experience for myself. And I think it helped the company understand that we had a New York office and a Boston office, and they both did their own discrete work. The New York office mostly worked on New York projects or New York based projects out of that office. And we didn't cross pollinate too much. And then when I came here and set up an office with nothing more than a monitor and a printer and a Wi-Fi connection, I was able to also work with everyone in the company, and I think that helped everybody understand, like, oh, the brick and mortar isn't something that we need to adhere to as a part of our daily practice. It's not there for me. And so when COVID came around, it was quite an easy transition for me. I'd been doing it all along. And so it was very helpful. And if there was a positive thing that came out of COVID, it was the fact that we all got to work with each other now. Every office was now working with her. And so we all sort of came together a little bit better and understood each other's needs. And so then there wasn't an each other anymore. It was just us.
Oh, that's great.
Us in the ether, so to speak. Virtual us's. And thank God for Slack.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Blessing and a curse.
Well put.
So one of the things that Lisa and I talked a lot about in creating this podcast is we wanted to take the conversations that happen at dinners, on show floors, at manufacturers' offices and reps' offices when reps come to you, and put it in the public space for each other, our customers, our clients. And one of those subjects that I think is a constant challenge in the lighting industry for everyone involved in the lighting industry is pricing, both in the process of budgeting and pricing. So the goal of the conversation today is to kind of learn how you kind of approach that. And I think, based on talking about multiple offices, we can even talk about the problem of, well, who actually specified it, and then who gets that credit. And I'm going to throw one other piece out before I throw it to you, Derek, is this is in the public space, right? This is going to be shared. And one of the things I loved about us getting together recently was, you and I kind of think the same, and we don't keep anything, right? So this is, you say what you want or not want, but ultimately this has to be discussed. So with that, like, maybe take it away. Like, what are some of the things you're doing and some of the challenges that you're seeing?
Well, it's the 800-pound gorilla in the room, always. And let me just reference the remote office notion and multiple branches, because this is a really important aspect of this. So we're going to talk about design up to this point, right? So we've designed this project, and as we're designing, we're gathering pricing all the time, and that is part of our deliverable contract is estimated hardware costs per phase that we deliver. It's just, so we're trying to mitigate the surprise at the end. So in working with remote office, it's very important. So reps are also, reps are a partner in what we do. They are there all the time. We can't spec what we don't know, right? So we count on them. They're an essential part of the process. And I have reps in my area, and every office has reps in their area. And I should preface this a little bit by saying I was a rep for 2.5 years in the Boston market. I highly encourage people who want a career in the lighting design business to spend a little time doing that, because it will make you a better lighting designer. It will also it will equip you to know the game and how to diffuse the game or beat the game or run your own game for for what that's worth.
All
So
true. I've
yeah,
sat in that chair too, Derek.
yes, it's just a valuable thing. So we have reps in my area code, and then I've got designers in Boston and New York and LA and Phoenix, and there's reps in this area code. But it's very important to honor a rep's time and their investment in what we do, and not to hose them. In that, wherever a spec is coming from, whatever office it's coming from, that is the rep base that we use. So if I'm working on a project that is in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I'm in Raleigh, and the spec is coming out of the Raleigh office, I have my designers in New York or my designers in Boston, whoever, talk to my reps that are local to the 919, because they're the people who are going to see the benefit of their work. A rep in New York or a rep in Boston, because the spec is being issued out of Raleigh, will never see any of that. And it's not fair to take up their time and to put them on the hook for information. So we established pretty early on that whatever office the spec was coming out of, that local based rep group of all the players there would be the reference for information. And so I have, consequently, which is awesome, I have all our New York designers and our Boston designers and our LA designers know reps in the Raleigh, North Carolina area, because they're constantly communicating with them. And so we try really hard to adhere to that. Occasionally, if I'm stuck or hung up for something, I might call a dear buddy from my old rep firm in Boston and say, "Hey, can you just give me an answer real quick?" And they mostly say, "Sure, we'll take care of that." That's fine. There's no expectation there.
That's relationships again, like we said at the beginning.
Is, right. And if you hang around long enough, you'll make a few relationships, and sometimes they'll come back to help you a lot. And so that's how we approach that in terms of just dealing with the players, to making sure that it's equitable for everyone and that everyone's time is being respected. That's really important.
I mean, I know if we can pull on that thread a little more, I know a lot of offices are dealing with that now. We've, remote, even maybe just a remote employee working out of, we have people in St. Louis who work out of New York offices. We have offices in St. Louis with employees in Minneapolis. So, yeah, it's something all the offices have to work out.
It was an incidental byproduct of just, I'm coming here now. I've got to meet the reps here, and we had to make a conscious decision about how do we handle this reps crossing territories, because territories and reps are, territories reps, territories distributors. That's all a big part of this mess. I call it a mess.
I wonder if we should sidebar for some of our listeners who are not fully aware of how this all works, and spend a moment. For our more experienced listeners, they might be like, "Yeah, thank you. Skip for a moment." But just getting clarity as to manufacturer, rep, distributor, contractor, and this whole idea of territories and commission, and how commission's broken up, because it's not in the public space, really.
Right. And a lot of reps are comfortable with it not being in a public space. A lot of them, like, when you learn some of the tricks of the business, and you learn how they speak and how they protect whatever litter box they're in. So it is a very territorial driven notion. Reps, they have areas, and those areas are pretty well defined, and manufacturers have set they go into a particular area, whether it's a market, say we talk about the Boston market or the Chicago market, very well, and the LA market, and they say, okay, we have we're going to pick this rep agency. It's also important to know that rep agencies work on 30-day contracts every 30 days. And that goes both ways. So a rep can fire a manufacturer in 30 days, and a manufacturer can fire a rep in 30 days. And that happens an awful lot. I mean, those line cards you see change more than NFL team rosters do. No doubt about it. So the way the manufacturers typically set up a rep is they enter a contract with them and they pay them 10% of the sales orders they take. I mean, generally it's 10% is the accepted rate.
Yeah, there's the sale, but then there's spec credit.
So then,
And
so
local.
right. So if you're a designer and you're in this area code and the project is in this area code and the rep is in this area code, that is just a no-brainer, right? But you, all of us work across the country and sometimes across the oceans. And so how does that work out? Well, there are typically agreements between the specifying rep, the buy rep, and the ship to rep, because now projects are being bought more often in places where they are not, where the project is not. The project is purchased somewhere else. So typically it's normally like a 50-30-20 split. And this is what's really important at the beginning of your project when you're talking to your reps and they ask you that question over and over again. Can you tell me the name of the project? Can you tell me where it's located? And so I just need a price for this sconce. Like, I don't want to tell you that yet. But they need to register projects. They need to get them in their system and be able to track that all the way through. Because they live from commission to commission, right? It's a commission-based business. And so whatever project you're working on today, let's pretend the spec goes all the way through to the end. And the manufacturer that they rep got an order, they'll get a commission check 30 days after that. Well, what's the duration of our design processes? I don't know, 12 months, 18 months?
Well, and Derek,
years.
we should clarify, like, it's 30 days after the distributor pays the manufacturer, which is after the electrician gets paid, which is after the general gets paid, which is after the client gets the money from the bank or the loan, which da-da-da-da-da. So,
and then, after all the liens have cleared on the project.
Right. So, and we all get paid really fast too. So,
yes.
Like you can just imagine
what
length of time
right.
that they're working on these things.
So when a rep develops an agency, creates an agency, they're not going to see any compensation for their work for a year and a half or 2 years. So that's why it's very important for them to get our project work into their system, get it notated, track it, stay on top of it, and protect it. They're really literally protecting that project from a bunch of vultures, possibly, that are going to come and pick at its bones throughout the process.
Right, right. And somebody can say, I sold that project, and they have to prove that they helped us, the specifiers.
Right. So the only way you can do that, it's funny, I'm a bit of a musician, and I understand this notion of copyrighting music. So it's kind of like they have to copyright this project that they first engaged you on, to stake out that on this day, I talked to this, I gave them a sample, we had a visit about this project. So when the other rep from the ship to district or the purchase district sticks their hand up in the air and says, "Hey, we bought that through our area, or that ended up in my backyard," and it's really important to understand, the specification rep is really responsible. I think is ultimately responsible for the pricing, because they give us the budget pricing, which means that pricing should follow through, right? Because everyone else wants to get that little piece of that pricing, right?
I've learned that there are some manufacturers where the specification agent sets price, and there are some manufacturers that the local agent sets price. And we're actually dealing with a challenge right now with one of my favorite manufacturers, who hasn't agreed to sponsor yet. But ultimately they said, well, you need to inform that we needed to inform the rep in this locality the job so you could get a budget price. It's like, what?
No. So that's why. So the validity of pricing, once it's outside of your area, you don't have control of it anymore. As much as we have control, but I have documentation. When we enter pricing into our database for a project for what that we're budgeting, we note the date we got the price and who we got it from. So they're kind of on the hook for that number, whatever it is. And if a manufacturer allows the buy rep or the ship to rep to be involved in the pricing, oh, I don't know that pricing anymore. I got my pricing from my local rep here, and I assumed that number was true and was going to carry through, which meant all of you should have been talking to each other all of the time about project XXX, right? There should have been a level of continuity that followed through the pricing, because someone at the other end is going to get greedy or say, oh, I had a bad month last month. I got to fatten this one up.
And then how does that make you look to your client or the owner when you said it's going to cost this much and then it doesn't? Like that's
the real crux of it, is because we provide this pricing as we go. First of all, we're the defender of the project, and we're trying to protect our client from the wolves, right? And protect our reputation and the value that we bring to the project. I mean, they look to us because we're the expert. You hired us because you don't know, right? And so you trust us to know. And when then that number gets out of our control or starts to flow downstream, and remember, we do all our design work, and this project goes away for 18 months. So we've been dating the owner and dating the architect for this amount of time, and then we break up. And then this general contractor comes in, and they're now dating the owner, and they're whispering in the owner's ear, your ex just cost you so much money.
That's such a great analogy.
It's just
so awesome.
You should never, ever talk to them again. And we're left on the hook when these numbers that have commas and zeros coming back at us. And then the rep who's now who broke up. I mean, the owner who broke up with us a while back is now looking and saying, hey, those guys who whisper in our ear every day, it seems that they're right.
Yeah.
Like, well, you're dating the devil. So, okay, they probably do sound like they're right. So then we have to defend our numbers. And that is a magic moment. That is a magic moment for me. That gets me out of bed in the morning. Really,
because I think it's clear. We want to be clear, right? Of that second whisper that happens every day. They're making money. They have a markup on whatever that value is, right? So the higher that is, the more markup they get. And typically, I'm sure you both see this. They don't have line item pricing, and they don't provide any of that. It's just this huge number. And the owner doesn't know what they're talking about. It's just some big old number.
Okay,
whereas
so why
our side isn't?
Why don't they have line item pricing? I think it's Michigan. I feel like there's like a state law or something that we have line items on our Michigan projects for fixture types in the bid documents.
We write it into our specifications, and of course they just like. You and your funny little stipulations, will crush you like a bug. So we also ask for line item pricing as part of our notes and our specifications. Of course, our fixture schedule, your fixture schedule, all of our collective work, that's a legal contract. I mean, that's a legal document. So we put it in there, we whimsically put it in, you will provide line item pricing for this project, right? And so if we ever got into the super litigious spot on it, our lawyer would say, hey, you bid on this document. It says right here in this document, Your Honor, that they were supposed to do that. And, we know the shell. It's a shell game, right? It's all a shell game. And so the shell game has many players, from the rep to the distributor to the contractor to the GC. And then occasionally there's a few bad actors that slip in there. You know, there's the bootleg project where they're bootlegging gear in from another area and the local rep doesn't see it. That's a whole nother podcast we could do about. But that is a dirty game that happens. And so tracking all of this and defending our honor is essentially a kind of a full-time job, which sucks because it's an adjunct part of what we do. It's like, okay, well, you guys said you'd supply this pricing, and the owner's trusting in the pricing, and then the numbers come back, and it's like, okay, well, now we have to get everyone on the phone and start pulling that little thread in that sweater and seeing where it unravels. And I tell all the people that work with us, one of my mantras is, you have to be really comfortable with making people uncomfortable. Okay? Unless you are willing to get on the phone and whip out a bag of righteous anger on a group of people who you don't know, you hadn't met. And by the way, you better be right. You really better be right. Because righteous anger is only as good as your facts, right? But when you are, because we are protecting the honor of the job, if none of this mattered, then there would have been no reason to hire us. You could just let electrical contractor design the job. You could let a rep design. You could let anybody design the job. But somebody invested in your time, our time, to bring value to this process, and to let someone pervert the process, at the back end of it, when your head is, by the way, distracted into current work you're doing, because the work you did happened 18 months ago. It's like,
you're dating someone else now.
Yeah, that's right. And it's like, the light you see from the stars happened a long time ago. Well, the budgeting numbers coming back happened a year and a half ago. You are really busy right now working on all the design work you have. I got to stop, and now I have to unravel your mystery. And that's part of the game. And lighting in the construction industry is the black eye on the construction industry. It really is. Everyone knows what conduit costs. Everyone knows what concrete costs. Everyone knows what sheetrock costs. Those are well understood numbers. But lighting is this black hole of pricing and markups, and it's a discipline to know it all. This is why a little experience in the rep game really goes far, because if I'm having a conversation with some reps and I get a rep on the phone from out of town, I don't know this person, I've never met them, I can just say the word overage. And if I drop that word, they know, oh God.
Oh, he knows.
Oh God, he knows. He knows.
And what is overage, Derek?
Well, overage. Well, let me tell you, Avi. Thanks for asking. Overage is this. I referenced before that rep agencies work on contracts that are basically set up where they make 10% commission on orders that they get. And to run a business on 10% commission is really, really hard. Any kind of business. And if you're a big market business and you've got 30 employees in your rep agency and you have 125 lines, there's a lot going on. You got an inside sales staff, you got an outside sales staff, you've got admin, you've got brick and mortar costs, you got all of it. It costs a lot of money to run a business like that. So trying to run that on 10% is really tricky. So there are deals cut between manufacturers and reps. And what happens is when a distributor gets your fixture schedule, and they go to the rep and they say, I need pricing for this fixture. The rep then takes that fixture, feeds it back up to manufacturer. Manufacturer comes back with a number for the rep to give to the distributor. That number doesn't really have a name. The number doesn't have a name yet. It's going to have a name in a minute, but it doesn't have a name yet. It's just a number. And then the rep looks at that number and they make a value judgment on what they think that fixture is worth in their market. And all factors that come into play on that are, how did we do last month? How are we doing next month? Who am I competing with? Am I fighting off a rep who's trying to sub the project? All these factors come into when they think about what this $150 downlight cost, right? Because the manufacturer told them, we're going to sell you that one downlight for $150. So we typically deal in pricing and single unit pricing only, understanding that budget discounts exist, but we can't predict them or account for them. So we provide single unit pricing. So the rep has that number, and he's going to do something with that number. He's going to look at it, think about it, and he's going to say, I bet we can sell that for $160. So now there's a $10 delta from what the manufacturer told them it would cost when they place an order for it. And you're going to tell the distributor it's 160. So it's 150 coming out of the manufacturer. It's 160 to the distributor now. So there's $10 hanging out there. Well, who gets the $10? How's it divvied up? What's the gentleman's agreement between the manufacturer and the rep? That number, that $10 is called overage. And so we're just talking about $10, right? We just talked about one single fixture that somebody wanted to buy, and there's $10 hanging out there. And you go, okay, that's not unreasonable. I mean, that's they make $10. They made sales calls. They did the job they're supposed to do, which is fine. But again, it's hard to run a business just on 10% commission. Now, Avi loves downlights. He's the downlight king of the universe. So he has 350 of them on this project. And they put $10 on 350 fixtures. So now you've moved the number with some decimals, commas, and zeros, and now it's a real number. And so the manufacturers have these deals, a side deal cut with each rep, which is to say, we will split that money that you believe the fixture's worth in your market, on the street in your market. We're going to split that with you. You're going to give us a little bit. You're going to give us a little bit of that. You're going to keep some of it. We're going to. That's the overage split. Those deals are typically 70-30, 80-20, or 90-10. Where that comes into play on a larger scale, and I referenced this term before, is of a shell game, is that when a rep is putting together a package, and distributors are talking to them, and they have all this number, the distributor just wants a big fluffy number because they're going to give it to the contractor. It's a big fluffy number. They might play some games within the lines, within their line card about, there's no rep that just has one downlight line, right? Or one linear line. They have 125 lines, major market reps. So they might look at this situation and go like, hey, if we could use downlight B instead of downlight A, we have a 90-10 split with that manufacturer. We have a 70-30 split, not being completely cynical and factual at the same time, at the uncomfortable same time. So this is where the shell game part comes in, because they have a different overage policy with different manufacturers, and some are more favorable and some are less favorable. So then they look at the set of things they have in front of them and say, okay, well, if we move this downlight to here, we have a 90-10 split with these people, not a 70-30 split. So now we're going to get $9 out of that $10 versus $7 out of that $10 times 350 on top of the 10% commission. So overage is not a dirty thing until it is. Sorry. It's not a dirty thing until it is. And it's just part of the industry. But understanding it and understanding how they manipulate that is a way for us to provide better pricing, better expectations, understand where the game is being played, if it's being played maliciously, if it's being played for a good reason. Maybe a rep is trying to fight off another rep who's whispering in the distributor's ear. He's got a package that he can give him, and that rep knows that you love what you expect, but he's trying to fight off guy over here. So there's a lot of different variations to that take about how it's done. And so if you say to someone and you know the game and you're talking about pricing and you drop the word overage, they should know, okay, this person I'm talking to is aware of the process. We could call it the game, you can call it the process, you could call it whatever, whatever word makes you feel better about it. It's another way to look at it. So that's a little insight about how that works. And the distributor gets the number, they put their mark on it, and they give it to the contractor, and then they're going to put their mark on it. So when we provide budget pricing, we try to account for two markups, the distributor markup and the contractor markup. Now, the price between the manufacturer and the rep is not our business. That's not our business. That's a sacred number between them two. So when the rep tells us this is a DN price, a distributor net price, that's the price. Whatever game they have going on between them and the manufacturer is not our business, nor could you ever know it without having some inside information you wouldn't know.
Right. You don't know if there's overage on that price.
That's right. And as long as we feel that the price seems reasonable with our expectations, then the overage doesn't mean anything to us at that point.
That's their game to
that's
hit
their,
that
that's
number
their game.
that we're going to think
and
is
you
reasonable.
Take your energy and you put it there and you work that stuff. We got other stuff we got to deal with. Right. So yeah, it's a little bit like that.
So you talked about that magic moment when they come to you and say, this price isn't what I thought. How much of this are you divulging to the client at that time? And have you ever explored telling them up front? I've done this with residential, but not so much in the commercial world, of saying, hey, in 12 months when they're about to install the lighting, they're going to tell you that I don't know what I'm talking about and that that it's cost this other, whatever.
Yeah.
I've made great relations. Like that is when I've had those clients come back to me and say, you were right. They did that. I say, yeah, I know.
I believe that happened.
I can tell the future.
Oh my God. You're
So yeah, how much of this do you share with your clients?
Well, so, we do mostly commercial work, and in that sector, contractors, they know all of their own games. And so, but every time an owner builds a building, it's their first time they're building a building, right? It's the GC's, 100th project, and it's our 400th project, but it's always the owner's first project. So you assume that they're new to it. Maybe they're not, but maybe they are. And we might not have access to the owner to talk to them. We can tell our client who does have access, which is typically the architect, what to expect, and here's what happened. And I've said that, if you know a project is going on in a certain market, there's certain markets that are better or worser than other markets, for lack of a better term. So if I think a project's going on in market A, I might say to our client, hey, that's a really traditional package market. Maybe it's even like in my area code, this was when I got here, was a distributor contractor driven market, not a specification driven market, which meant distributors and contractors had their way with whatever was happening. So that's a whole different dynamic, right? It's like who controls these specifications that get out for bid. And so I do occasionally, if I feel like the market we're in is unhealthy in that regard, I would say something to our client. Generally, budgeting comes up now. The budgeting issues are coming up earlier and earlier and earlier.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I mean, we're in DD, and they're talking about the project being over budget. It's like, I don't even have dots on paper. How is it over budget? Because we thought about it, it's over budget?
Well, no, it's because the electrical contractor knows that's already been hired, knows there's a lighting designer, and you're not going to spec the things he likes. And they want to put 40 points on the lighting fixture package. So it's over budget.
Yeah. And electrical contractor, their markup, I think the general person on the strength thinks the electrician gets paid what they get paid an hour, right? And while that is true, they do get paid what they get paid an hour. They also make money by selling lights to the project. And so for anybody who wouldn't know, the question occasionally gets asked, well, why doesn't the owner just buy the lights themselves? Like, why do they, like, why do you have, why have that step in there? Well, electrical contractors make money from selling lights. It's part of their revenue stream. The value that they bring to that notion is when something is wrong with the order, when one nut, bolt, screw is not there, they handle it. If they didn't, then it would be advantageous for every owner just to buy a project directly, right? But then that would make them a bank, and that would also make them accountable for every nut, bolt, and screw on the project. And then if you do take that away from, if you take that away from the electrical contractor, because occasionally it happens, owners say, oh, we're going to buy this directly. Electrical contractor is not so motivated to help them when something goes wrong. It's like, look, you ordered this stuff. It showed up at the dock, and you're supplying it to us now to do our work. That is now the only thing we're getting paid for. is that now, not so they bring a little value in that they run game for the hardware, and they're fronting the money for the hardware, and then they are accountable for it. So that's another reason, and occasionally we'll have an architect say, hey, do you think the owner could just buy this directly? And I go, ooh, please don't do that. Don't allow that to happen, because that's an attractive notion on paper to say I could get rid of 15 points of this $1.2 million worth of lighting. That's some commas and zeros right there. But it's like, are you equipped to deal with it 24/7? Do you have the infrastructure to deal with lighting hardware?
Yeah, I would say we actually have a lot of clients that buy the product, and I think these are all really good points, but it takes an infrastructure at Morlights to manage that for the client.
Yeah.
And the contractor, while 15, we have one project that a contractor wants 30% on the fixture package. What we typically recommend is that they get 5 or 7% or something like that, because, like you said, they still have a lot of responsibility, and that needs to be discussed. But yeah, we've taken a little bit different approach. But you're right on that. There's a lot of work that still needs to happen, and they have a responsibility that there.
Yeah, if an architect comes to us, and a lot of times it's more museums that are more apt to want to buy the lighting package. General contractors and stuff, they know that. They're like, man, you don't want to do that. But a museum might say, hey, we got a donor, and donor came out and said they'd be happy to. The donor turned on a light once, so they know a lot about lighting. So they suggested we buy the lighting directly, and they'll help us. And I said, okay, well that's a noble goal. I automatically shift into, now we're all going to do a lot more work.
Right.
I'm going to have to do a lot more work. You're going to have to, so you think about, you're going to be answering phone calls and not having to answer stuff. And then you're going to call our client, who's going to call me. And then everyone gets taxed a little bit in the process of you saving money. And we call that jumping over dollars to pick up nickels.
Oh, we do a lot of that.
Yeah, it's just like, it seemed like a good idea up front. Yeah, it seemed like a good idea up front, but ultimately you didn't save. What's the value of your time?
Well, yeah.
What's the value of your human time in this?
Well, but it's the client wants it to be your time.
It is.
They're paying you a flat fee for, so it's not costing them anything.
What they don't know is it's our time. It's all of our time.
That's true.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the other thing, and I don't know if you guys have experienced this, I think we may experience a bit more using a lot of dolly controls, is that we have problems with manufacturers constantly because they don't know how to program drivers. And the contractors don't understand how to explain those things back. So we end up being in the middle of it anyway, because they don't know how to explain to somebody what's not working. and getting the right parts or getting the right pieces. I mean, it really depends, right? We're speaking in generalities. It depends on the contractor. It depends on the distributor. Depends on the local rep or your rep, whichever one is involved, right? But there is a lot of time spent there amongst everybody, and I love that idea of, chasing a dime to save a buck, like it's not, did I say that right?
Jumping over dollars to pick up nickels. But it's true when we talk about generalities. Most contractors can't spell DMX, and so one costing issue is when they see that question marks equal dollar signs, right? So when they're doing a takeoff on a project and you've splattered DMX all over this thing, and a contractor's looking at it and they don't DMX, sure, yeah, my neighbor does this Christmas tree lights in it every year, so I know something about it. No, you don't. You can't even spell it. And you're going to butcher it, and then we're going to get taxed to death. And the only thing that you can really do to try to mitigate that early is just have your paperwork, have your drawings, have your everything so tweaked up that when they come back and they're knee deep in it and they didn't hire a lighting integrator like we recommended because they're trying to save money, we wrote in our spec, you're supposed to hire a lighting integrator who can spell DMX, and they'll make your life really easy, but it's not free, right? And you build it into the cost of the program. When they don't do that, you have your paperwork really tweaked up so you can say, look, it's just follow the lines, man. Just follow the lines, for God's sakes. Follow the lines. We've done it all for you. Just follow the lines.
But we did veer off. I want to come back to that magic moment, right? Where
Yeah.
Because I think I am a huge fan of that moment too. But talk a little bit more about that magic moment.
Lighting matters. As we wrap up, we want to reiterate how much we value your time, and we hope you found it as much fun to listen to as we had creating it. Remember to like it and share this content with your friends and colleagues.
The opinions expressed are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the official positions of the sponsors. Our content has general application, but we recommend obtaining personalized guidance from a professional IALD lighting designer, such as RBLD or Morlights, for your next endeavor.